This is Let's Talk Big, the big read with Jane Berger and Jen Hazel. The Owens Community College Campus Big Read is taking place now and throughout the semester, with the goal of bringing awareness of different perspectives through books. The Campus Read book is A Little Less Broken, How an Autism Diagnosis Finally Made Me Whole by Marian Schembari. It's the story of one woman's decades-long journey to a diagnosis of autism and the barriers that keep too many neurodivergent people from knowing their true selves. Now, sharing passages, topics, and events related to the book are Director of Library Services, Jane Berger, and Professor of English, Jen Hazel.
Welcome to Let's Talk Big. I'm Jen Hazel, and I have with me my partner in crime, Jane Berger, and Alex Burkhardt, honor student who is back with us. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, it's good to be back.
We're happy you're here.
We are.
Because guess what? I have another passage for you.
I'm excited.
All right, we're ready.
It's the highlight of my week.
Thank you.
Sweet talker. So we're getting toward the end of the book here. If anyone's following along, page 223. I really did try to accept that sharing my story was enough. Why hunt for reasons to doubt myself? For weeks after my essay's publication, I stayed strong, but I felt like a sixth grader in the cafeteria, hearing the popular girls whisper while giving me the side eye, knowing they were gossiping about me, but unable to make out their words. A month or so later, I gave in to the itch to eavesdrop. I scrolled below my bio to 201 comments, squared my shoulders, and started to read. My instincts had been right. The top comment was from Margie, who'd clearly had enough of whatever bloody massacre had happened below. There are many things I would like to say in the surprisingly large amount of people on here saying that, essentially, because my son is verbal, he isn't disabled enough to be autistic, or need services, or deserve the same advocacy as a more deserving, WTAF, autistic person. But I am so upset I can't really form thoughts. Alex, thoughts?
When I first read the passage, I definitely felt at least some relation to it because I had a lot of kids with autism, at least like some form of it, as friends when I was waking up. And I did notice that most of the time, they were telling me sometimes just about how different accommodations were never really given to them in the same regard as to other students, specifically if a room was too bright, too loud, stuff like that. And I'd always also seen students in the hallway as well from the special ed classes or something like that with those big headphones over their heads, something like that. So I guess that was one of the forms of accommodations they got. But most of the time, people who are undiagnosed, I feel, just never get it. And most of the time, schools just, I don't know if they just don't care enough or schools just don't notice it enough, or...
I wonder if they even have the services sometimes to be able to take notice, and if a teacher doesn't necessarily say anything. And I wonder, as a parent, does the parent notice? Because you live with that person. So you learn to make your own accommodations, so to speak. So maybe parents even can miss some, obviously verbal would be a big cue that, okay, maybe something isn't, firing correctly, or, what would be considered normally, but more subtle type of symptoms, we'll say, may not be picked up by parents as well. So wouldn't it be easy for kids like that to kind of fall in between cracks and not be noticed?
Well, one thing that I think is really interesting is, there's a couple observations that I've made since my son was diagnosed. And again, for our listeners who are maybe new, my son is a level 3 nonverbal autistic. And one of the things that I remember when I was telling my younger brother this is he had said, well, I don't think I know anyone autistic. And what was interesting to that, I was like, yes, you do. And I was like, in some ways, you don't even know you do. And he was like, well, what do you mean? And I think really, I am not going to give the year, but once we stopped using the Asperger's diagnoses and went to like a level system with autism, I think one of the things that has happened is really like broaden our scope of understanding of it. And looking at it, because really the people who were, and Marian, she doesn't talk about this part specifically, but she does talk about like herself, it wasn't until she was 34.
Right.
And there's other individuals in here that it was like later being diagnosed.
Right.
I think one of the things that I think is super interesting, and I think really speaks a lot to this, is the fact that it's like we didn't have an understanding. We only understood it as someone who would be institutionalized, not be
Right.
able to speak, headbanging,
Right.
Uncontrollable, like continual stimming, and stimming that was not something that is acceptable, like a non of the twirling of the hair type of thing. And so now that the scope is much larger, we're catching some students and some students not. Because some students are really good at modeling the behavior,
Sure.
faking it, masking, as she
Right.
talks about.
Getting through. But who would tell a parent that your child isn't, quote unquote, autistic enough or disabled enough to even warrant further testing or further conversation, taking another look? I mean, that just doesn't even seem, that seems so archaic to have been told that.
Alex, what do you think that might be happening there?
Something that tells me that the people that are saying that are people that don't have autistic children. Like, people who say that don't, or at least people who say that have not met enough or any autistic people in their lives, and so they only really see it like online, or they're only really exposed to it that way. So obviously if they only know it that way and someone says that they have it and they're not displaying the symptoms, then I can definitely see why they might think that, oh, it's not enough to be considered autistic. But at the same time, I mean, as you said, and as what's been more like known, it's like a scale, it's a spectrum, so.
But what's enough? I mean, if somebody needs help, does it have to be enough? Shouldn't the fact that someone needs help be enough?
Well, what I wonder, this is what it actually struck me as, and that's a super interesting point, Alex. I didn't think about it like that. But it does make sense. Like we haven't identified what our understanding is. Our understanding is someone who was institutionalized. So
Right,
how could that
right.
be someone there? But I also wonder if, and around this quote is her talking about someone who responded like with, well, my child is more deserving of stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of it isn't like this. We are afraid that there's only so much in services,
To go
and
around.
you're going to take away from
Yeah.
my child who needs it more than your child does. And
Yes.
even when I think about this, so my son was the first child on private insurance to have, and I've talked a little bit about ABA before, to have ABA covered by insurance in the state of Ohio. Because previous to that, a lot of it was only through Medicaid or scholarships.
Oh, wow.
Because it wasn't required of something that they had to do. So I often wonder if it isn't.
Yeah, that could be too. Or there aren't enough people who are professionals in this specific area. Maybe people need to be retrained. I don't know.
Well, and what's interesting is we do have at BG, they now offer a program where someone can get a master's in
Perfect.
ABA. So that has widened the scope of therapists who are trained in the therapy, and that's a whole nother conversation, but in the therapy that is often used
Right.
to help assist individuals.
Before we have to wrap up, do you want to explain what ABA stands for?
Yeah,
in
it's
case-
Applied Behavioral Analysis, and it is and there's lots of things like underneath it, but it's used for many different things, but it's specifically used for autism.
Yeah.
And we'll probably bring in an expert on this, but to talk about a little bit, but in some ways it is controversial because in
Yeah,
some ways
I
it
did.
can be, people have found it to be sort of abusive, but that is for another conversation.
Yeah.
But because we need to wrap up, which is unfortunate because I feel like, Alex, there's so much more we could talk with you about. We didn't even get to talk about your experience as an honor student. But we thank you so much for coming on today. All insightful as always, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of myself, Jen Hazel, Jane Berger, and Alex Burkhardt, keep talking big.
This has been Let's Talk Big. Catch Let's Talk Big anytime on the RSS feed or the Owens Outcome Plus YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. Join us again for Let's Talk Big, the big read with Jane Berger and Jen Hazel.
On the phone tonight.